lot of my information is from Alberta. We will have Saskatchewan, just bear with us because it's a lot of work to get all this information and get the screens done. But for example, in Alberta, 4.44 million people, 37 federal seats. So they have 55% more representation in Alberta. And in Saskatchewan, when I looked, the numbers about 33% more, I think. We have a little bit better representation here, but still, it's not fair. This is the other problem. How many of those judges, the 9 Supreme Court judges, do you think in Canada were appointed by somebody other than the Liberal Party? Remember, they're bilingual. Where do they normally typically come from if they have to be bilingual? We know how they typically vote, right? So we have 2 for all of Western Canada and the territories, 3 for Ontario, of course, 3 for Quebec, and we got a big one in Atlantic Canada. That's one time that they actually restored it there. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The reason we are allowed to, or we should be allowed to bear arms is so our government, and that's why this is always in the U.S. Constitution and here in Canada, is so that the government can't do things because the people have a way of defending themselves. Or if anybody attacks, we can defend ourselves, right? We all know what's happening with gun laws. Probably a lot of you here like to do some hunting. Maybe you're on an acreage and you know why you have to have a gun. There's no way that an immigrant who came here 2 years ago, living in a high-rise in Toronto, like those commutes on the train, has any idea why somebody in Saskatchewan may need a gun. You're out on the acreage, hour from the RCMP, somebody comes into your yard, how do you defend your family, right? You got coyotes that come in, different animals. So our rights are just continuously being taken away by this current government, and that's one of the problems. So create the problem, offer the solution. I'll be addressing that a lot, because that is what we are seeing an awful lot these days. So Pierre Poilievre posted this: Nazi socialism, Soviet socialism, narco-socialism, and all other forms of socialism move at different speeds, but also to the same destination. Impoverished hell for the many and special powers and wealth of the few, for the few. Only freedom, free speech, free enterprise, and free choice empowers all to fulfill their potential and live good and great lives. You can never vote your way out of totalitarianism, and you sure can't vote your way out of communism. Mice die in mouse traps because they do not understand why the cheese is free. The same thing happens in socialism. Yeah, I like that one, it was good. And this one really made me laugh. Doug Ford: you should be allowed to shoot criminals who break into your house. Rules for thee, not for me, right? Pew pew. Here's the reality. He's all for taking away people's guns and the gun bans. Yeah, he was really promoting that. But yet, when somebody's coming into his house, I don't know, maybe he didn't leave the keys by the doors, by the door, because that's what they're supposed to do now. You don't want to inconvenience the criminal, right? So I'm not sure what he was thinking there, but these are just examples of how backwards things are. So let's talk quickly about equalization payments. This is why Alberta's really upset, because they get nothing. We get nothing. You'll notice Manitoba gets a little bit of 4.4 billion, and of course 576 million from Ontario, and the Quebec one is a sore spot for them for 13.8. And you'll notice that's in the past. This is the new one. Notice the figures went up. So that's why Alberta really wants to leave, because they have about a $40 to $50 billion surplus each year. So all the money they send to Ottawa in the form of your carbon taxes, income tax, every tax, for what they get back for the transfer payments, so I mean for their education, their policing, their healthcare, all those things, $50 billion difference. What do you think they could do with $50 billion for 4 million people? It's insane. And I don't have the number for Saskatchewan yet, because we're working on that. But it's, we figure it's between $48 billion right now that we're giving extra to Ottawa. That's only 1 million people. So this is actually from the last 15 years. Alberta's net contribution to Ottawa is $244 billion. and you see where Quebec's is.
Well, I left that meeting, but I'm coming to school there.
I love technology, right? I need a secretary. Anybody looking for some extra work? We pay really, really big bucks.
They double what you get.
Exactly. Which is twice as much as what you get. Oh, man. Yeah, so $327 million that Quebec gets in the last 50 years from transfer payments. And you'll notice where Saskatchewan is on this list. It's $19 billion. We definitely, that's over the last 15 years. So keep that in mind. What the last year's rate is, I also don't know yet, but I'll have that next time in here. So, oh man, this thing doesn't want to stop. Canada Pension Plan, who pays and who receives? Again, this is of course based towards Alberta, but they paid $53 billion in the last 41 years that they paid more than they've gotten taken out. And right now, their current figures, they're paying way more with their workers than what they're paying out in the people that are collecting. Saskatchewan is pretty close to about the same now. Here it shows that we were a little bit behind, but that's over 40 years because things have really changed with our resource development in the last 20, 30 years. So I found this to be a really interesting slide. GDP per capita in 2024. These are all the provinces and the states. You'll see where New Brunswick is, 60th, dead last. You go all the way up the list, Newfoundland Labrador, I was surprised, they're at 45%, or 45th, on the list. Alberta is way up there at 20th, and Saskatchewan's at 25th. I like this slide for one reason. If we were together as one country, where would that put us? Definitely. And not only that, I'm again getting this data, but I can tell you that we're about third or fourth in the entire world, if not higher, for GDP for our revenues that we would have, not counting how many more revenues we would be able to create when we can actually open up a resource market. I thought this was an interesting comment. Daniel Smith said, when I became premier, I thought I would fix everything in 6 or 7 months, but everything is broken. So that tells you she went in there with the intent to make changes, and she's frustrated. So again, that's another reason why the system just does not work. I found this would be interesting. God is the king, the currency of kings. Silver is the currency of artisans. Debt is the currency of slavery. And that's an old saying, and I think it's very true. I want to make a note, there's a capital gains story. As you know, they're trying to go after the capital gains of people's property. So in Alberta, this farmer passed away, and his kids assumed his property. 5.5 quarters at $1 million each. So they had $5.5 million. This is the value of that land. When that father passed, they had to pay a tax of $2.5 million. They weren't able to keep the land because they couldn't come up with the money. They had to sell the family farm. And those of us living in Saskatchewan growing up here, we know what that story is all about. Isn't that sick? That's how they managed to steal our wealth. $1 million a week right now in interest. And my question is, who's getting it? If you think about the central banking system, somebody's getting really rich off of all the spending that Mr. Carney is doing. I just found this sign kind of funny. And just so you know, SPP is not a partisan at all organization. We're not related with any political party. We never will be. We are simply an education group. Our goal is to get out to everybody, have this discussion, have them look at the facts, so when it comes time to vote, they can make an informed decision. That's the only role that we play. When plunder becomes a way of life for a group of men in a society, over the course of time, they created for themselves a legal system that authorizes it and a moral code that glorifies it. I'd say that's very true with Ottawa, isn't it? So I found a few scandals that I could have, we could be here for 4 hours, I could be going through this stuff. But I just want you to count in your heads as we go along here. This is from 2020, 187 billion worth of Liberal interest spending that found 20,000 missing projects. How do you lose 20,000 missing projects?
In the laundry.
Yeah. Must be with the socks and the Tupperware container lids. I'm shocked that a Trudeau minister who was one of the 11 parliamentarians mentioned in the NSI COP report was not just helping China subvert democracy, but was also liar. So what this one did, Mary Ng, she had this small business giveaway where they're supposed to create all these startup businesses, whatever. She got $130 million, and there was 0 startups and 0 net job creation. The money just vanished. And everybody knows about the Ride Canada scandal, the one where when we all had COVID and we were all going to kill the rest of the world. We had to show our little Ride Canada came to the airport, and everybody knows the story of 2 guys in the basement that got millions of dollars for an app that would cost about $500,000 to make at the most. And this one, I didn't know about this. This is only from November 11th of last year. I must have missed this one. He was accused of siphoning $254 million to his own companies when he was a minister. And I do not like this guy, personally. If he's one of your relatives, I'm sorry. Can't be family. And this one really blew me away. $11 billion Trudeau spent on overseas gender programs during tenure. Here was the guy who we don't have to worry about the budget, it'll just balance itself. Oh, I don't really concern myself with economic policy. And the guy who's going to balance the budget by 2019, and where are we now?
It's all Donald Trump's fault.
Oh, it sure is. Big bad orange man, right?
It's all Donald Trump's fault.
I remember seeing this, and it really bothered me at the time, and now it actually makes me angry. In an astonishing statement to the New York Times in 2015, Justin Trudeau declared, "There is no core identity, no mainstream in Canada, and consequently that makes us the first post-national state." In case you don't know what post-national state is, that is a state without any cultural values and without borders. And if any of you who know anything about the UN 2030 agenda, you would know that that is the whole migration that we have coming in here right now is an actual work stream by the UN. And if you don't believe me, you can go and look online, type in migration replacement, and it'll take you to the UN site. When you read that, you'll understand why they're bringing in all these immigrants. They're going to be replacing us.
Also
And that's the plan. If you don't want to believe that, that's fine. But if it's happening, I guess you'll figure it out.
So is a small arms treaty here pretty good?
Yes. So here's something really interesting. In 1954, the Canadian government passed a law that made it illegal for the media to lie to you, to the public, and on purpose. Yes, I know, right?
That was 1954 though.
Yes. But you remember, there was a time when you actually could tune into the news, and they would give you both sides of the story. That might lean a little bit this way, a little bit that way, but you usually would kind of be able to figure it out, between everything you saw, like what the story is, what your interpretation would be, right? Well, I found this really interesting, because I did not know about this bill. C-39 in 2019 was voted on and passed in Parliament to remove it, meaning no accountability for media to tell the truth or lie. Now, here's the really interesting thing when I saw that date. Just before COVID, and you remember when they started funding CBC? Isn't that coincidence? It must be coincidence. And of course, as you know, they keep increasing the funding, and they've been lying to us about a whole lot of things, and I'm sure probably preaching at the choir here. I just saw this is like just the other day. CDC claims, CDC reports most homeowners delighted to pay capital gains on their homes if it means supporting more newcomers. I remember getting that call. I said, yes, absolutely. Bring them in.
And here in Prince Albert, we just opened a CDC news source in Prince Albert. They're in the process of getting it up and going downtown, and one of the main key players there is from Arab descent. So, again, I just rest my case.
Yeah, it sounds like we'll probably get some real good Canadian stories here, like, Bill was out fishing, caught a big jack.
Go to the United Kingdom and you'll see what's going on there.
So right now, you've probably heard that there's some bills that are going through the House. I think some have actually just passed third reading. I can't remember which one. I think it was, could have been this one, 8 or 9. But there's C2, C8, C9, and then C12.
C3.
And then there's also a hate speech something. But anyways, these bills are putting in place will basically give them the ability to be just like what Britain's doing right now, where they're arresting something like 1,300 people a day for posting something that's naughty on the internet. Like, I don't agree with the government. Like, I don't know about you, but I know what that means. That's communism coming our way. When they start censoring you and they're starting to pay the media, state-run media, that's right out of Marxism. Bill C2 is a border bill that bans large cash transactions and allows warrantless mail searches. I think that's the one that just went through. Am I right?
No,
Anybody
it's
know?
3, I think.
There's 3 that have gone through
No,
now?
C3.
C3 went through, okay. C8, cybersecurity bill that lets government force people offline without oversight. Really important to us in this movement. Justice bill that lowers the threshold for hate is the C9 one. So, we were going to wait till after the new year to get going on these town halls, and I realized something. We don't have a lot of time, because if tomorrow they decide to pass these bills, they can even cut off your phone services. So, for example, I'm driving around province right now. How am I going to reach anybody if I can't even phone? I can't get on the internet because they won't allow me. So, we could be in a situation really soon where we're going to have to literally go door to door and hand out flyers when they get these bills through, they decide to get aggressive with them, right? And this is not one our Mr. Fancy's parents there today. The very concept of a nation founded by European settlers is offensive to me. Old stock white Canadians are an unpleasant relic, and quite frankly, replaceable, and we will replace them. Remember we put about the migration replacement. Well, it's not he's talking about himself. So you've been hearing probably on the news they're saying that they're cut down the amount of immigrants coming in. Well, if you actually dig into it, you'll find that that's a lie. In Canada, since 2015, 10 years, 15 million immigrants came into Canada since the Liberals have been in office. And they approved 1.94 temporary residence applications. And if you've been listening to the news, now they're talking about making them permanent residents. They're doing a little fast track system. I wonder why they're panicking and trying to get them in there. The violent crime rate in Canada from 2002 to 2023, I thought this was interesting because it kind of, and this is, like I said, not partisan, this is just the facts. It's way up there and it goes down, and then C-75 is passed and all of a sudden it takes another climb up. We all know about the release no bail kind of thing. Canadians pay 42.3% of their income in taxes, more than food, housing, and clothing combined. This is from Europe, and I thought this was kind of relevant to post. So you can see in 2000, for example, Poland had 22,399 rapes. England had 8,493. In 2023, 2 years or 3 years later, and this is not the latest result, numbers, England and Wales were up to 68,000 rates. Poland, though, is actually dropped. They're at 1,127. Do you know why? Because Poland has not allowed immigration into their country. So, and what I'm suggesting here is that with the amount of people that are coming in, and don't get me wrong, I'm pretty sure we all can agree that people who have immigrated and over the years, if they come here to be like Canadians, they want to assimilate, and they're going to work hard, and they're going to contribute to society, we're all for that. But when they come in and they're getting free housing, or they're a refugee and we give them safe haven, and then all of a sudden they're down in Toronto burning Canadian flags, death to Canada, I'm sorry, but if that was me, I'd be playing in the van, on the plane, here's a bush, oh, sorry, we forgot to give you your church. And this one made my blood boil. This is recently, as you probably most of you heard this, he literally said Muslim values are Canadian values. Now I'm sorry, but you know, and again, nothing against the religion, and you know, I'm totally for free speech, free religion, I really am. But I've always been asking myself the question the last couple of years, if I was them, and I believe in Sharia law, why would you want to come to a country that you know will never agree with you? They can't go to any culture in any other place in the world unless it's a Muslim country. Who else is going to go think it's okay to beat women? That's okay to stone them. That if they get raped, well, you killed a woman because she shouldn't have got raped. Like, what the hell? Like, we don't want that in Canada. You can see what's happening in New York City. And if you know anything about London, there's hardly anybody that was born in England in London now. It's totally been taken over. Goes back to what I said about migration replacement and about us being replaced. That's just the facts. The Islamic domination of the West, I thought this was worth putting in there. Pretend to be a refugee in order to gain access to your chosen country. Play the minority card while outpopulating on a scale of more than 5 to 1. Infiltrate politics and call other racists and bigots if they don't agree with you. Geez, I've never been called, you know, names when I've told somebody I don't agree with something, stay out of line. Implement a watered-down version of Sharia law with the help of the leftists. Kill all those who do not submit to Islam and dominate every Western country. Open your eyes, look around, take notes. This is not a joke, this is reality, and I agree with that. And I found this, I didn't go over this one, so I can't verify everybody, and I think this might be an old one from maybe before the last election. But if you actually go through and you look at how many parliamentarians actually were ever born in Canada, there's actually a lot. And here's the thing, I worked 35 years in corrections, and part of my job, I took it upon myself to think if I was anything sitting in a cell, how would I save? How would I take hostages? How would I cause a riot? That's just survival mode. And in that, the reason you do that is because you're trying to prevent something. So for the security of the country, our country, picture this. Let's say a room of us, we get together in some other foreign place, and we say, we want to take over Canada. So we all move to Canada, and we all get put into our regions, and we infiltrate our party. Let's say we've got some backing, that's, you know, like maybe Arab money, maybe, you know, almost half a trillion dollars maybe, we can do lots of advertising. And if enough of us get elected, the majority in a party, we can change all the laws to whatever we want. Because if you think that our government just doesn't do things even if it's legal or not, then you forgot what's been going on for the last 5 years, haven't you? So moving on, we're going to talk a little bit about taxes. So we all know Big Bad Man Orange there said that he's going to charge us 25% tariffs, and he's making 51st state jokes, and I've got some first-hand information on the 51st states that are coming up. So we have the carbon tax, the personal income tax, corporate income tax, goods and services tax, excise taxes, fuel excise tax, alcohol excise tax, tobacco excise tax, cannabis excise duty, excise duties other than alcohol, tobacco and cannabis on other products, customs duties, tariffs. I don't know about you, but I paid custom duties on some stuff coming across the border. Air traveler security charge, luxury tax, provincial and territorial taxes, of course, capital gains tax, land transfer tax, media tax, regulation tax, CPP tax, business tax. I didn't go through the list, I'm sure we're missing some. And I've got a little chart on taxes coming up. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. Yeah, this is Alberta government minister admits COVID restrictions were all about political control and power. We all remember that. So I just want to put this into the federal deficit just so you can kind of see something here. So since Liberals got in, it was $1 billion for that year. In 2017, went up to 19, then down to 14. Of course, the COVID was only 39, but the next year with the vaccines was 328 billion, 90 billion, 35 billion, 62 billion, and the first this year we know it's about $100 billion that we're going to spend. We are at $1.5 trillion in debts. Within a year, we're going to be about 1.8. Won't be long, we'll be at $2 trillion. We have how many people in Canada? Just sometime we are home on board, do the math. Like the spending has to stop. And every time they increase the cash, because that's all they're doing is they're printing more cash, putting it out into the market. But when you do that, the price, the value of everything drops against the cash, so your products go up in price, and that's what causes inflation. And then carbon tax too. Anybody who's a farmer knows that you've got to pay your fuel to get the chemicals and the grain and everything in the ground. You're paying for fuel, you're paying carbon tax and all that. It's got to be transported to the mill. They got to mill it. You know, there's heat involved there in the drying process, and of course keep the lights on, and of course that goes to the Oreo cookie factory. And every time along that way, it's compounded because everybody keeps their margins the same. If they cost more, they just charge more. Carbon taxes cost Canadians billions over 5 years, hurting the economy while reducing CO2 emissions by 11.9 gigatons. China emits 11.9 gigatons of CO2 every 37 hours. China laughs Canadians pay the carbon tax scam. Coal power stations in China, they have 1,161, and they're adding them weekly apparently. USA has 204, India has 285. As you know, those are the 3 biggest polluters on the planet. We have a total of 8, and you saw the last slide, and we wonder why our weed wasn't being punished paying carbon tax. The carbon tax revenue in Canada is second highest in the world at 7.88 billion. And you'll notice that I don't see India on there anymore. I don't see China, and they're the biggest contributors to the whole problem. So the taxation in 1910 was about 6% that you pay tax in different forms here in Canada. 1950 went up to 15%. 2010 was 33%. Today, it's estimated somewhere between 43 and 46%. So as you can see, it's just going up and up. Now, the 51st statement, I wanted to address that because you'll hear people that are in the defense community says, yeah, they're wrong, they're going to join the states to be the 51st state. And so the story goes like this, and I got this right from Mitch Sylvester, who is CEO of the APP, and they were down in Washington. So just before they went down for their second delegation 1 month ago, they got a call from the party of Quebecois that they wanted to meet the APP, and the guys at the APP were like, that's weird, like, I don't want to talk to us. So they flew down, they had a meeting, and this is what they discussed. Apparently, because they're leading in the polls, when they get elected, because they're pretty confident they're going to get in, they may not even have an actual vote, because they're not in Confederation, because they never signed in. They're thinking that they might just become their own country and leave Canada. They also asked them, while they're talking to this down in the White House, if they would ask, because in the first meeting it came out that the U.S. would recognize Alberta as its own nation if they decide to become independent. They asked them, would you ask them that for us while you're there? And apparently that question was asked, and the States people never say anything, just kind of put their head down and kind of smile. I don't think they like it. But anyways, so what came out of that meeting was they were told, this is somebody who's in the Oval Office, and they won't say the name because they were asked not to, but it's somebody who's one of the high, like the Secretary of State that's in his cabinet, what kind of thing. And that's where they went right after me was into the Oval Office. So this isn't from somebody, you know, some little guy on the street. So first of all, they said that the 51st state thing is a non-starter. That's never going to happen. So all the people who are worried about that, you tell them it's right from the White House. It won't happen. They admitted that Trump has been doing that to poke the bear and having some fun with it. And we all know that it cost us election outcomes. I will never forgive him for that. But that's besides the point. So the next thing that they discussed, and well, the reason why is, you have to first of all be a sovereign nation before they can even look at you. And there's still Washington, D.C. that would be going ahead of you. There was Puerto Rico. We would be third on the list. And the problem is that you need to have 2/3 of the vote in both the House and the Senate for it to pass. And as you know, the Republicans and the Democrats don't agree on anything, so it's a non-starter. They told flat out it'll never happen. Of course, you hear the people that say that, oh, they're gonna, as soon as we were independent, they'll come and they're gonna take us over for our resources. Duh, they can do that right now. Like, what are we gonna stop for? The other thing that they were told is that they were willing to, they're gonna give Alberta a loan. So while they're making the transition from being part of Canada, they're gonna get a little bit of cash to operate until they start collecting their own provincial and federal tax and be all going to them. And of course, there's that transition time. They said they would give them a loan for that, no problem. So that was not for their financial issues. I'm sure that if Saskatchewan wanted to do the same thing, I'm pretty sure we'd be able to get that. Now, I can't answer these questions because, of course, I'm just like you, just a regular person. But I've talked to people that have been there, talked to them, and that was kind of the feeling that they were getting. Now, when it comes to, I don't remember what the other thing was, something else I think was important at a meeting. Oh, there would be no tariffs. They wanted to have free trade with Alberta because they want Alberta's resources and they don't have a bone with Alberta. So those are all good things. And then they also said, again, they reinforced that, yes, we will recognize you as a country. So anybody who thinks we're going to join the States, tell them that no, it's not going to happen. And secondly, that the U.S. will recognize us as a country and want to do business. So the other thing I noticed online, I found a website, a guy in Labrador, Newfoundland, has a separation site, a Facebook group. 100,000 people are on that group. So it sounds like they don't want to really be in Canada either. So they might be looking at doing what we want to do. Yukon is another one, and then of course Nunavut just mentioned or announced they want to become a province. I really question why they want to do that. So I found this map of oil. I thought it was really interesting because, as you can see, it pretty much goes all the way through Alberta and Saskatchewan. Like, you can't even see the provinces because there's oil everywhere. I found this interesting. I don't know if this is a quote from Brad Wall. I have not verified that, but I would imagine the figures are pretty close. 1/3 of the world's oil reserves are in the two provinces. 35% of the world's. So potash is 50% of the world's. Uranium is 75% of Canada's is in Alberta and Saskatchewan. Canadian beef industry is 20% of the Canada's total GDP, of 40% of Canada's population. So here's the thing that I have not yet researched, and I know probably where most of the answers, and you can help me out if I missed some, but what do we have in Saskatchewan? We have uranium, we have potash, we have gold, diamonds, we have oil, we have rare earth, we have silica, aluminum, and fresh water, and agriculture. We could be completely self-sustaining, that's important, but we could really totally be self-sufficient. And I thought this was interesting. Alberta has, of course, no oil fund. Norway came about 10 or 15 years ago to look at the Alberta system. They have built up a 1.3 trillion oil fund for their people. They have a rainy day fund. Because, of course, Alberta is sending all their money to Ottawa. The Carney government needs to fast-track oil and gas development because there's the numbers across the country. Of course, it's higher in Alberta, and I'm surprised it's higher in Saskatchewan than it is in Alberta. But only in Quebec are the only province where they are not above 50% supporting pipelines, but yet we can't get one built. And the thing I thought was really interesting when Danielle Smith gave him 6 months, and then she extended to the Grey Cup another 2 months. Here's the reality. Just think logically. You're going to become prime minister, and you say, "Oh yeah, we're going to work together. We're going to do this. You know, if we get elected again, we're going to put that pipeline in." Would you not have had shovels in the ground about 5 months ago? If he was serious, it would already be going. So this is just another stalling, typical thing that comes out of Ottawa. I spoke with Taiwan's foreign minister today. He asked Canada to export oil to the island democracy, calling it an urgent national security issue. Do you remember when Germany was here, and of course Japan right up, they wanted to get our liquid nitrogen gas? Well, do you remember what Trudeau had told Germany? Oh, we don't have a business plan for that. So imagine you and I, we have a store, and we sign, say, clothing. We sell $2 million a year in clothing. And a customer walks in and says, "Hey, in the next 5 years, I want to give you about $45 billion worth of business." Now, if I told them, "We don't have a business plan for that," do you think you would beat me silly when you came back? Because I sure would. It makes absolutely no sense. And here's the quote I did, or the figure I did not know about. As you know, Trump signed $750 billion deal with other countries, selling the LNG for $14 a unit. You know where they're getting that from? Alberta, for $4 a unit. So that's what Canada is costing Alberta and costing all Canadians, because that money would have been royalties that would have went into our pockets, right? When the energy activists tell you they need the Pacific tanker ban to protect the environment, just remember the American tankers are traveling up and down this same coast every day. So Bill C-69, the tanker ban, as you know, we're not allowed to put any kind of oil out to port on the west side of the country. It's funny that they can do it on the east side, but can't do it on the west side. And there are literally boats going by every day full of all kinds of chemicals and oil, but you can't do it from Canada. And they even apparently, I did not know this either, apparently they offered to double the hauls of our ships that would be taking that across, and they still wouldn't go for that. Canada is the only country on the planet stupid enough to tax, cap, and ban the very issues that make us rich. Bart Carney's calls it net zero, I call it national suicide. I thought that was a great quote. So the bills, the agricultural sector in Alberta applies to Saskatchewan because, of course, as you know, we have farmers here. Everybody probably has heard about the Ostrich farm and what happened out there. You've probably heard of some of the farms of the Bovian cattle flu where they come in and wipe out the whole herd. It's happening with avian bird flu with the chickens. And, you know, if you can't see where this is going, I'll spell it out for you. It's called, if you look to a farmer, you're hurting the farmer's business. Eventually they're going to have to go out of business because you can't have all your product being taken from you and like you have no money coming. You better have to sell. So they want to put the farmers out of business. The second thing to do with this is you're reducing what? The food supply. And if you watch really closely the next law, you're going to look back to last year. They've been attacking our food supply very, very slowly, just taking 1, 2, 3 things at a time. We all know about the tariffs of how the canola oil is being hit in the province. Again, that's going to hurt our farmers, and that's all by design. And I thought this was an interesting thing. This is the investment in industry, machinery, equipment. You'll see since 1985 how it goes up and down, up and down. That's what the black one is the States, and the red one is Canada. Well, look where Canada's gone since, 2015 when the Liberals came in government. That's going to be coincidence too, I'm sure. For Canada, foreign investors have gone MIA. And if you look at the net divestment in the first half of 2025, you can see it's in the red. That is the first time that we've been in the red. Like Mr. McCarthy, he's helping build our country. Liberals voted to keep the production cap on Canadian oil and gas. That means no new pipelines, billions in lost investment, thousands of lost jobs in Canada will keep selling our energy at a discount to the US. Just more of Trudeau's failed policies. Here's the real GDP per capita growth in the entire OECD in the first quarter of 2015 to 2024. Canada is right at the bottom, 1.4. And right now in all the G8s, I know we're for sure at the bottom, and I think in the 20s we're just about the bottom. I mean, with the resources we have here, the people we have in Canada, we should be right at the top. So basically, Carney comes in and Trudeau just handed him the keys, just let Canada burn. And this is recent. Bank of Canada Governor warns citizens to anticipate lower standard of living. Can it get any lower? Different face, same terrifying agenda. Don't take our word for it, take his. And has anybody read his book, Values? It killed me to buy it, but I had to read it because you can't argue something unless you have it. This is actually a factual quote because I read it. I have it. He says, climate emergency. When you talk about climate emergency, he claims that rigid controls on personal freedom, industry and corporate funding, assets will be stranded, used gasoline powered cars will be unsaleable, inefficient properties will be unrentable, he promises. So what party ultimately wants is a technocratic dictatorship just by climate alarmism. Now I really like this because I want to show, or talk about one thing, the inefficient properties. I'm not going to get into details, but if you want to understand what's going to happen to our projects, because I'm sure you know about the underdrift that's happening right now in BC, where they're coming to Richmond, the natives have claimed the land there. There's a guy who's lived there for 30-some years, went to get a mortgage. They won't give him a mortgage now. So what's he going to do? How's he going to get off his house? No one will lend him money because now there's a second claim on his land. That's one of the ways. There's land use bylaws. Anybody here from the Garden River area? Yeah. So you know about the land use bylaws. That was method number 2. Agile Nations is the third method. So you want to look into some of that stuff if you know what that's about. But that's where the inefficient properties come in. I picked up on that because what the plan is, for those of us who actually own our houses outright, you have to think like you always have to start with them and work backwards. So I want to do this. How do I get there? Well, the way that you get there in that case is you make it so you can't use natural gas because it's causing climate change. You have to put this new pump system in. It's going to cost you $60,000. Oh, well, we got that pump system in there, but we don't like that the water's on your roof and it's going on the street and it's costing us money, it's causing climate whatever. So when you got 1,000 square feet, well, we're going to charge you $100 a square foot. They can do all those kinds of little things so they bleed you dry. And that's exactly what that's about. That's part of the unit agenda. So we've had $90 billion in investments have left Canada in just the first month. Conflict, I call that a portfolio. He had 103 ethic violations. It's actually up to 150 something now. You can't even get these meetings fast enough. It just, you gotta have one of those little dials that just keeps spinning the numbers higher. I put this in here because I want to talk about the EV mandates. Just another reason, living in where we are in Canada, particularly the cold part of the country, anybody who has not an EV, there's very few people I've actually talked to that are happy with them all year round because they don't work. As soon as it gets really cold, you can't charge them. Sometimes they won't even charge, and of course they don't last as long for charge because, of course, the batteries drain faster. And I think of myself trying to drive to BC to visit somebody, 16-hour drive. I got to stop every 3-4 hours and spend how long charging? Like, man, that's a one-day trip I can do if I drive all night. I'll be looking at least 2 days. Carney has secured 42 contracts since becoming Prime Minister. All contracts have been with Brookfield Management. Canada has been looted. That one with Cameco that he just did with the nuclear reactors, owned by Brookfield. This was an interesting one I came across. This is fairly recent. This is the MAID program. We've all heard about that. In all the provinces, these are the numbers of the percentage of them that were white people, Caucasians. I just thought that was very interesting. You can take it from that.
Can't read it.
Can't read it, sorry. So Newfoundland, there's 100%. I'll just run down PEI 97%, Nova Scotia 99, New Brunswick 99, Quebec 99, Ontario 95, Manitoba 94, Saskatchewan 97, Alberta 98, BC 94.7. So that's quite an interesting. I wonder why it would only be those people. Coincidence, I'm sure. Canadian constitutional advocates warn that Canada's agreement to accept the WHO's global pandemic treaty as binding will cede Canada's sovereignty to an unelected international group. So anybody who doesn't know what that is where the WHO, the World Health Organization, has signed a treaty where if they decide to call it a pandemic, they can do whatever they want to us here. They can lock us down, they can force vaccinations on you, and one thing they've talked about in the past is the climate emergency. You remember when we were all locked up for 2 weeks and they showed how clean it was in all the different places, and the air was clean, the water was clean, wasn't being churned up. Oh, what a beautiful planet. Well, that is part of the plan. They are talking about doing a climate lockdown. Mark Carney has recently asked about the possibility of digital ID making its way to Canada. Carney responded, "Don't have any current plans for digital ID." Incidentally, Brookfield sets up a $25 billion fund to help government set up the digital ID infrastructure. Yes, Canada moves forward with digital identification for federal benefit seekers. That was just published recently. So you probably hear they want to do it to old age security, and they want to do it for EI benefits. So let me quickly explain something to you. Digital ID is not an issue if you have a digital driver's license that's here, and then you have, say, your digital log. That's okay too. Don't really like it, but it's okay. When you have all these different things, and now they start attaching your bank account to that, and they start bringing them all together in one place, that's how you control people. Yeah, you get a couple $1,000 waving.
That system was barely in place in England and it was already hacked.
Yes.
Why can't we hack it? That's the whole thing. Forget it, hack it, get rid of it.
Yes, the hacking thing. So no need to fill your passport to verify who you are. This is how they're promoting it in the brick card. If you've heard about the brick card, they're wanting them to, you have to have a digital ID now to have your job. Well, whatever happened to the way they actually check your papers? You know, like we've done that for how many generations, how many years? It all said like papers and good. And you're worried about being forged? Then do your darn job and make sure that it's not forged, right? You don't need to have digital ID. Saving you money on mortgage applications. Oh, you get a big discount. Prove your right to rent with one click. Lowering the risk of identity fraud. Are you getting me yet? First digital ID, then will become centralized digital bank currencies, then of course carbon credits, then carbon credit score. Beyond that, you are totally under control. Anything digital can be hacked. White program, blocked, frozen, controlled, monitored, etc. Digital ID is a gateway to full control and must be stopped at all costs for your freedom as that state. And I can't stress that enough. There are 3 pieces of control for this whole new agenda. It's digital ID, CBDCs, and C40 cities. The biggest one is digital ID because they need that to run the CBDCs. But they can literally shut you down. If you don't like something, you said something bad against the government, well, they can just drop your credit score. And this has actually been put in place in China. It's in one province for about eight years now. And the people there, of course, they're obedient and they just, oh, I can't go through today. Like, can you imagine you can't leave your district? That's what the C40 cities are. 17 countries have rolled out or passed digital ID laws in the last 3 months. UK, EU, Laos, China, Taiwan, Mexico, Zambia, Canada, Ethiopia, Thailand, Vietnam, Australia, Costa Rica, Switzerland, and Papua New Guinea, and I'm sure there's more places. So what I can tell you, I don't know how much you know about what's going on in Jamaica. They just had that big hurricane that went through, and it was just, from people that watch the radar and all, it said it was kind of funny how it just kind of seemed to be going like this, and just kind of steered right where they wanted it. That's where they're going to build a 15-minute city. Anybody remember Hawaii? Jasper? Like, it's all over the world. I'm sure it's just a coincidence. And with what's happening in Jamaica, here's the second part. I know some people because I traveled there and I made some friends and I've been keeping in contact with them for years. I talk to them quite regularly. Had trouble getting a hold. I was worried that something might have got, hurt in the storm. But apparently they all survived. Some of them had their house ripped off, or their roof ripped off of their house. But the biggest problem they're having there right now is food. They can't get food. And they just announced in Jamaica that they're coming up with a centralized digital bank currency. Isn't that just kind of, people are starving and now you're going to bring out the CBDC? Totally coincidence, I'm sure. So since Carney took office, Mr. L was up, and he's a really bad dancer. 2,400 businesses bankrupt, 106,000 jobs lost, 12,500 dead from May, $60 billion lost. And those numbers just keep getting higher. I thought this was an interesting comparison. Canada is where you live and pay taxes. 14.7% of our youth are unemployed. It's 3.5 times higher Senegal's, which is only 4.1%. Guess which one just got $25 million from our own government, our money, to improve youth employability in Senegal. Agenda 21, if you want to know what that's about, go look it up. This is from Alberta, but I thought it was worth noting and keeping in here. What happens when Alberta becomes independent? Their $47 billion stays home, freedom pays dividends. So they have a surplus, they stop sending that to Ottawa. Debt-free Alberta, their surplus wipes out $78 billion in provincial debt fast. No income tax, they're already talking about 10% right out of the gate, and they plan within 5 years will be zero. Efficient government, they want to have a smaller, faster government that streamlines services with zero waste. $47 billion net loss to Ottawa every single year. That's $40,000 per Alberta household. Can you imagine? You make $100,000 and $40,000 of that is gone. Federal transfers, the tale of the two provinces, Saskatchewan compared to Quebec. I managed to find this one. We get a total of $2.5 billion in transfers. So according to this one, I just found this 2 nights ago. I think our figures of between 4 and 8 billion are probably low. We're looking at more than 10 to 12 billion that we're sending. Quebec, but look at how many they get for transfers, 30 billion. Our resource wealth funds transfers while Saskatchewan gets nothing back. We get nothing for equalization payments, but Quebec, of course, gets all the money all the way down to PEI. So an estimated $5.2 billion in federal income tax paid annually by Saskatchewan workers. Total federal take likely 8 to 12 billion once in corporate taxes and gifts here included. Only 3.9 billion is returned of federal transfers, meaning a net billion is lost each year. Now notice that is only talking about those things, not all the other things that we said. Energy resource truth. Kind of hard text to read that one. Senate seats, West versus Quebec. 24 Quebec, you remember the first one I showed you, I found this one. I'll be combining them together. 24 seats there compared to 24 in the entire West, Manitoba right through to BC. It's really fair, isn't it? You can find this is one I had at the front door, and one of our board members helped me yesterday told me we had lots of handouts left. There was anywhere near much. I should have checked myself, but these will be online on our website. They'll be posted as soon as our website's up and ready within a week or so. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what to expect. As I said before, you know that they're going to want to stop us, and they're going to do everything they can. I've gone through all that to make you realize just how bad of shape that we were in, and it's not going to get any better. And that's why I think it's so important that we got to get out fast. And I want you to be aware of something. Make sure that you let other people be aware, because they're going to try to use the fear tactics. They're going to have fear campaigns. You'll lose pensions. You'll lose trade. You'll collapse. Media smears, extremists, fringe, dangerous, just like the convoy, right? Fake polls, manufactured consent. Support is shrinking. Don't flood headlines with skewed data and cherry-picked surveys. Divide and can't conquer. Alberta's Calgary versus the rural, young versus old. Here, we know there's lots of different things that they're always pitting us against each other. Manipulation and deep state tactics. Saying that these professionals from outside are all like, if Alberta goes independent, yeah, it's going to collapse their market, no one's going to want life and all that stuff. So this is the question I asked you earlier, and I'm going to ask again. Can anybody think yet of one benefit for us to stay in Canada? So let's talk about just some of those things, how it's going to look. So first of all, I'm going to explain the process. So I told you that we're going to need lots of signatures, probably a couple times, maybe 3, 4 times, maybe only once, maybe twice. But we don't have a clear pathway. It's being worked on. I can't go into details of what the boundaries that they found. But just know that we're not trying to hide anything from anybody, but we don't want any of the government to know what we're looking at, because we want to get ahead of it. We don't want them complaining about roadblocks making it harder. So just trust me, please, on that one. So the thing that always blows my mind is when people, the first thing is when you talk about becoming an independent nation, they freak out that all these bad things are going to happen. So if we were able to get to that vote, we can actually get the heck out of Canada. The first thing that happens, like all the things I'm going to discuss now, know that I don't have anything saying that. You all do, because it's going to be voted on by the Saskatchewan people. So the first step is we have to get out of Canada, we have to get through all the garbage they put in front of us and get to that vote. Hopefully the majority of people are smart enough to realize we've got to get out, that we're an independent country. That's what we have to do. That's the first step. Only after that happens, that's when all the people, through referendum votes, whatever, all the changes that we can make that we're going to talk about will be decided by the people at that time. Know that as soon as that happens, Canada has to come to the table and bargain if they according to their Clearly Act, and so do the other provinces. So keep that in mind as we're going through some of these things. So the first one is new countries. I've heard all these excuses, and put your hand up and be honest, because I'll be honest, because I actually thought this. When you're thinking about Canada, we should leave Canada. Do you ever think about, yeah, but how are we going to do it legally? They'll stop us. Anybody ever think that? Did you ever think that maybe Saskatchewan government would let us go? They will let us have a vote. Maybe the Canadian government will stop us. The courts won't be on our side. The other countries in the world won't be on our side. The UN won't go along with us. I'm the only person who's thinking that. Well, I guess I'm the only one. As I tell you, there's a whole bunch of people out there right now who are at this meeting who believe that. And here's what I realized. They just hit me just a couple months ago. Who do all those people work for? Us, the people. We're the government, right? They work for us. We are not their slaves. They are not our masters, and we've forgotten that. We've been so conditioned in propaganda all our lives that the first thing we always think, well, yeah, but if I better not come to this meeting because someone's going to get mad and maybe they'll arrest us and all that stuff. I always like using COVID as an example. Imagine when they told us that we were going to be on lockdowns, and they told the businesses you have to be closed. And then they said, oh, you can be open, but you have to check for a vaccine passport. For anybody to come to your store, you have to wear a mask. They have to do this, they have to do that, right? And then the people, you have to have your vaccine passport to be able to go out in public. What if businesses said, no, we're not going to do that. I'm not stopping anybody from coming into my store because I got businesses right here. And the people said, no, I'm not getting a vaccine passport on my phone because that 16-year-old kid does not need to know what my medical history is. That's just one of our rights, right? If there was 40 to 50% of people would have said no on both sides of that, the businesses and the people, how long would we have been locked down? 2 days? And when did they actually drop the mandates? When the convoy was down there, all of a sudden they started rolling back across the country. Right away, they did kind of slowly just to make it look innocent.
Well, yeah, the Premier of Saskatchewan waited until the trucks were knocking down the doors before he stood up and made a change.
Right.
He just waited until the party.
He was the first one to drop
Right?
that.
They're always looking backwards.
So here's the lesson that we need to take from that. And you need to tell the other people out there to remember this. The next time they try to tell us we have to do something, just say no. If we all stand up together, they can't arrest all of us. They are not our masters. You know, I fully agree when we have to have laws. You can't go and just kill anybody you want, because I mean, there'd be a few of us that would be dropping pretty fast. But the reality is that there's a reason for laws, but we do not need them to be telling us how to live our lives, what to think, where to go, what to do. And we really got to just stop thinking that we got to ask permission. You know, I've had somebody saying that recently. I just had this conversation. Somebody said, well, North BC wants to separate, but they can't because that whole province has to go. Just stop and think about that for a second. That's a line on a map that somebody drew. If the people in the North want to go, they all want to go. If they just said, we're going, and they take a little line, they put it across and say, this is our side, that's your side, don't come on our side. How are they going to stop those people from doing that? Honestly. How are they going to stop us from leaving Canada if we want to? If the majority of the people in this province want to leave, how can they stop us? It's on us. No one's coming to save us, people. We have to stand up, we have to unite, we have to do it together. That's just the reality. So, a lot of people ask about the Canada pension plan. Right now, if you're on a pension and you decide to go to Costa Rica or Jamaica or to Senegal or somewhere, Australia, China, you want to live there, you get your pension. Yes, you do. They'll send it to you anywhere in the world because it's yours. You paid into it, it's yours. As we all know, Carney has put it on the books now. And is trying to use that for leverage so he can get loans. And I'm pretty sure he's trying to, we know they're trying to get their hands on that. But technically, that's illegal. That's our money. So you don't have to worry about your pension plan. When we leave, you're only moving, you're not moving anywhere. You're just, your country name has changed, but they still got to give you your pension. Now, let's say, like remember I said that you have to negotiate with Canada. It's like a divorce. So that would be part of the talks that we would have. But the amount of money that we would save, not sending anything to Ottawa, pretty sure we can look after those people pretty fast. Currency is another one I love. I just love this one. Well, you're not going to be able to use Canada's currency because we won't let you. You guys won't have any money at all. Yeah, okay, well, here's the reality. I want to buy something from you. You don't buy Mexican pesos? Here you go. If he decides he wants to buy it, it's legal tender in that country, and you can take it to the bank and you can transfer it into dollars, right? So we can literally use buttons and a smile if we decide that has value. That's just the reality. Paper has no value. It's the value we put on it. There is nothing stopping us from using Canadian currency. If they don't want us to, fine, take your garbage. Because I guarantee you, if Alberta and Saskatchewan leave, it's going to go real fast. Real fast. And they're trying to get there on their own, but we can really help them with that. So here's the thing. You remember that the states, oh, maybe I missed that part. The states offered to give, if they use American currency in Alberta, they were even considering giving them straight trade dollar for dollar. So you have to remember though, when that dollar goes up, that's when your prices go up, but it would all be lateral, right? Just don't be fooled by that. That's kind of a little bit misleading, but you need the same value. That's the main thing to take away. And everybody knows what OPEC dollars are. That's the trade in U.S. dollars. Why do they want them trading in U.S. currency? Because your more of your money's out there, it actually builds your wealth. So U.S. or any other country is going to want us to use their currency. But here's the real thing. And I'm the only person that seems to have thought of this. And I mentioned the guys at the Alberta Prosperity Project, and we'll see what comes out of it. But we live in Saskatchewan. Maybe they can't say this, but we can. We live in Saskatchewan. What's under our feet? What did they used to back all the currencies in the world off of? Gold. We have gold under our feet. Now, I'm not saying this is what we'll do. It's just an idea. Throw it out there. So what if we went and we mined our own gold, sold it up to pay for all the costs, so it was break even. Whatever extra gold we have, we put it in place and call it back to Saskatchewan, and we start printing our own currency based off our own gold. We can do that off oil, you can do it off commodities, you can do it off uranium, you can do it off potash. We will not have a currency problem. So anybody who tells you that, tell them to go suck it up, because it ain't gonna happen. Now, the other one I really love is landlocked. So as you know, if we became our own country, even with Alberta, we don't have a port to water. There's no way that we can get to water. We're a landlocked country, and I just love this one. We are living in Canada, and our own country won't let us get to port. So what are we losing? Zero. But here's the thing. Now we have some ability to negotiate. Oh, you want to move that truck, that furniture across our province? Oh, you're from Winnipeg, are you? Yeah. No. Go around. You want to fly that plane over our skies? We'll shoot you down with our 2 jets. And our military, we took some supplies from Canada when we split. Guys are gonna run out there and throw the tampons at you. So the reality is that of course the port of water people wait a week or something like that. We'll get that done. But the reality is that it works both ways. The other provinces can't come across our country, and they don't let us into theirs, and then you can't come across ours. So we got a little bit of negotiation there. And maybe we'll probably kind of like that pipeline and go through a little corridor there. So there's lots of leverage. I don't know what the numbers are for Saskatchewan, I won't get it, but I do know that for sure that Alberta, 90% of all the resources go south anyways. So, they'd love to have a pipeline both ways, obviously. But I mean, it's not like we couldn't get our resources to market. Everybody in the world wants our resources. That's just a fact. So, non-issue. All I hear is borders. Oh, yeah. Oh, what about a border patrol? Well, okay, so
We don't have border patrol now.
I think we can hire about 500 people right now. We'll put up a little, fence across all the highways, and we'll have them stand out there. Because what is it right now to go into the States? You drive through a little gate, and you walk around the rest of the border, there's no wall there. So again, that's just census. We can develop our resources, which is huge because as you know, we've got all these caps. We've got so much untapped resources underneath our feet. And if we could even take some of that to market, we would be able to get rid of all the taxes, we'd be able to get rid of property taxes, be able to get rid of a whole bunch of things. I think I have a slide that really represents, it shows that really well, but hopefully it went into the mix. Airlines, that was another one I heard that just killed me. Well, you're not gonna be able to fly. Well, why is that? Well, passport, and you're not gonna be able to fly out of Canada, out of Alberta or Saskatchewan because no one's gonna come into there because you're no longer part of Canada. Well, I don't know about you, but if I want to fly to some little hick place down in Africa, I'm pretty sure I can find a plane down to Africa, like for walkaways. But none of the airlines are going to pull out of Canada. I mean, come on. And none of them are going to pull out of Saskatchewan, Alberta. And as far as passports, that's one of those things that would be negotiated. We could ask for dual citizenship. That is a possibility, and that's what Alberta is talking about, so I'm just using their information. But the other thing is too, of course, we can do our own passports, and I don't think we're going to have any trouble getting on. Other countries know that we live in Canada, we're right in the middle, we're all Canadians, so if they're going to look at Canadians and they'll let us in, maybe let us in more and a lot easier because, of course, we're not as dumb as the other side of the country. That was my outside voice. Taxes, we collect our own taxes, so all the ones we're saying to the federal government would be less. All those examples I showed you of the federal government, all of the corruption, that's all our government is, it's all corruption. And if you compare it, there's the federal government and the provincial government, there's corruption on both those levels. And I'm not saying that we're going to be able to get away from that completely, but could you imagine we could get just rid of the Ottawa corruption? That's where 80-90% that I see, that's where I think it is, right? And here's the other thing. How far did Chris Barker have to get in his truck and travel to get to Ottawa to even say he doesn't like what they're doing? But Regina's real close, isn't it? So I mean, they'll have that in the back of their mind. They know if they mess up, we're only a car ride away. It's fine, maybe a full day we go stop at a restaurant and buy a hamburger on the way home. Carbon taxes is one obviously we would want to get rid of, so we wouldn't have to worry about that ever again. and all the inflation it causes, the tariffs, I'm pretty sure we'd be able to get a really good deal with the states. Of course, I can't make that decision, but based on what they told Alberta, I would say our chances are really good because we have just as many resources as Alberta does. And the UNDRIP program, that's going to be an interesting one, and I don't know how it's going to play out. I have somebody looking into it right now as to what's in the treaties here and how that's going to apply, and I've got somebody that's talking to a couple different constitutional lawyers just to kind of find out how that applies to the Constitution and how it applies back to the purchasing of land or seizing of land. So I can't honestly answer that, but as far as the treaties go, because their treaties are with the Canadian government, the Crown, those treaties would actually just transfer, and as they are, they would transfer as their, that'd be part of the negotiation. So instead of them getting their money from Ottawa, they would get it from us. So any ones that have their hands up, their arms up in the air, yes?
Can I say something?
Absolutely.
Hi there, my name is Sylvia McAdam. I'm from the Nihil Nation here of Treaty 6. Man, I'm glad I came, because all of you sound like Indians now. I can't get a mortgage on my house on the reserve. Pass and permit system that we had to live through. And all of you are immigrants. Remember that. You're here. No, go ahead. It doesn't matter. You do your research. I'm a law professor. All of you came from somewhere.
As did you.
No, I'm born here. These are my people's lands. So what I'm saying is, you can't transfer the trees. You think that you guys are going to treat us better as an independent Saskatchewan? I'm going to tell you something from, I'm part of the group.
Federal government treated you.
I'm part of the group of Rise Alberta. And you know what they posted? I'm going to read it to you. And if this is what you subscribe to, then we're going to have issues. Having pride in one's own white race for the thousands of inventions, accomplishments, and the creation of a Western civilization based on Judeo-Christian beliefs is our right. And may I add, eminently well-deserved. We have friends of other ethnicities. We're not racist. We do not see ourselves as the master race. That being said, we should always be proud and know that the white race is second to none.
I have a question for you. May I ask?
You know what?
May I ask a question?
Hitler said those words.
May I ask a
So
question?
if that's what you believe in, then you're going to have issues.
Do you believe?
We're not, like,
I have a
trying to
question for
separate
you.
this, like,
And my question for you.
I have to go to work,
But you know,
so I'm gonna go.
I just like to ask you a
Just hold on.
My question
Ma'am,
to you.
ma'am,
would
please,
be,
I gave you the chance to talk. Can you
do
please
you
check?
see
Rise of
where we
Alberta
could
has
have
nothing to do
a
with us,
nation
and it has
together?
nothing to do with
Your
nothing to do with us.
with us.
Okay, you guys are saying you're going to take a loan? He just said debt is slavery. You're going to take a loan to go independent? You know who's mad that they're going to dig for that gold?
God's land.
Be simple.
God's land.
Be simple. That's where. And it's called easement.
Instead of us asking for a crumb off of somebody's table, don't you think unified together,
Well, that's
strong,
what I'm saying.
don't you think instead of asking for a crumb from Ottawa,
Welcome,
us
sorry.
people here unified in different, whether it's Indigenous folks, whether it's Caucasian folks, or who it is, frankly, here, one nation, together, unified together, equal.
Article 36 of the UN
You
says,
think-
born of the soil.
That's actually what the definition of indigenous is.
36 UN chapter, born of the soil.
Okay, but let's be respectful.
You think that Indigenous people will support maybe the minuscule, but no. You think we're going to break away from our families in Alberta? No, that's not going to happen. So I have to go to work. And I'm glad I came to hear you guys' thoughts. It's really interesting.
You
something to say to ma'am. I was kind enough to let you speak. I really appreciate that you take it. Anyways, as I was saying, the trees would transfer as long as they're able to get that. And if they want to work a new deal, obviously that would be, I think, to their advantage, because they've been screwed just like everybody else has been by Canada for the last 20 years. Completely screwed. So here's what I'm going to be doing myself is I want to contact some of the chiefs, and I want to actually ask them a simple question. I don't want to argue with them, I just want to ask a simple question. I don't want to have that happen. What I want to ask is very, very plain. If Canada was all of a sudden no longer masters over either of any of us, if you were in charge of your reserve land, what would you want it to look like? Because I bet you they haven't really been asked that question. And whatever their answer is fine, because that's a starting point. It's about discussion, it's about talking, it's not about getting mad and then walking away. And I'm obviously on everybody's side here, it doesn't matter who it is, but we really have to be respectful because there is a lot of beliefs, there's a lot of things, a lot of misunderstandings, and that's exactly what they want. They want us to be divided. They've been doing that for years. We've got to stop that. We've got to get together with everybody that's an interested party. We've got to actually have a conversation with them. Because we want them to be on our side. We're on their side. And you know, I'm really happy because I hear a lot of these comments online, and I always tell them, come out to town hall meeting, tell us what you want. Have a discussion. I don't like when somebody says what they want to walk away. If you want to have a conversation, let's do that. And I think most of us feel that way.
If I could just add quickly, Brad,
If I could just add quickly on the treaty piece, there is, like Brad said, we're working to try and talk to some of the decision makers in First Nations and see exactly what they want. They can either transfer, like Brad said, or they can negotiate something that everybody is in agreement with, and it can be a whole new different agreement. But it's about conflict resolution and coming to some agreement that all parties can agree on. So that's what SPP is interested in.
And again, we can't speak for everybody, but I think that our approach is pretty fair and considering everybody. The military one, you won't have a military. Well, we don't. I mean, really, do you think anybody's scared of, again, the working guys go throwing the tampons at them? I don't think so. I mean, I don't mean that disrespect to the people that are in the armed services. I think it's very bad when our own government doesn't support their troops properly. They don't recognize them. Where was it? In a courthouse in Ontario somewhere, they told them they couldn't wear poppies to work because it's offensive. Like, are you kidding me? You're lucky you have a job and you were free because of those people. Here's another thing I just hit my head and want to throw this out there. That lady that I know told me that she would never leave Canada. I said, why is that? Because I always like to ask that question. As soon as they say whatever, I don't care what the reason is. I just want to hear why they feel that way. Because sometimes there's something that you can say in that. And her answer was, well, my grandfather fought in the war for this country. And I thought about that, and I didn't say anything at the time. I went home and I was thinking about that, and it just hit me. There was Russian soldiers that fought in the war. There was Indian soldiers that fought in the war. There were French soldiers. There was Canadian soldiers. There was UK soldiers. They weren't fighting for Canada. They were all fighting for freedom. That's the key point. Doesn't matter. They just happen to live in Canada, but they're fighting for freedom. And that's what we want to do. We want to fight for our freedoms because all the things I show you that's coming, we don't want that to happen, right? So the military is not an issue. You would actually divide so we can get some of the planes. And like we have the Air Force base down in Moosja. Do you really think they're going to come with a bunch of trucks and start scooping out all the asphalt and moving it over to Manitoba because, well, we're taking our military with us? I mean, obviously, the base is still going to be there. We get our share of we can negotiate our share of the planes. If Alberta goes, they're going to be able to buy lots of planes with $40 million or $117 million for an F-35. They could buy 10 a year. Within how many years would they have more than the entire Canadian country does? Policing, same thing. We're already paying. We're getting transfers to pay for the RCP. We're paying way more to pay for those RCP. We could do in Ontario, like the Ontario Provincial Police. We could have our own police force. That's not an issue. Healthcare. Healthcare is not going to change. We get transfers from Ottawa to pay for our healthcare. It's our own money coming back and we're getting less of it. So we'd have more money for healthcare. So again, not an issue. Education, same thing. All these things that people say, it makes no sense. Like seriously, people, I want you to think about this. Just picture right now, we just had a vote in Saskatchewan and everybody, the majority of people said, we're out of here, we're an independent nation. Tomorrow morning when you wake up, the way some of these people talk, it's gonna be chaos, there's gonna be fires and explosions and the whole place is blowing up. The fact is you'll wake up in the morning, you look outside, the sun's gonna come up, there's gonna be still snow on the ground, and it's gonna get really cold soon, and that's not gonna change. So really, what would change in that moment? Really? You know how long it takes to make changes? You watch how long it takes government to make any kind of change. You know, nothing's gonna change. The only thing that's gonna change is we can stop sending money to Ottawa, and we're gonna start making our own decisions, and we're gonna decide on a lot of things.
Why can't you pressure the government to stop the payments?
Sorry?
Why can't you stop and ask the government of Saskatchewan to stop making the payments to Ottawa?
Well, we could do that. Well,
I would
again,
wake them up.
We send in the money and wait till the phone rings.
you know, like, again, this is where we have to realize we have the numbers. We just have to have a lot of people that are willing to stand up and go down there. Like, you know, it's just a matter of us standing up together. So, you know, I always like to ask the question, what would or could it look like if Saskatchewan was an independent free nation? Because, I mean, we can be self-governing, so no more of this stuff in Ottawa telling us what we should think and do and what we're going to have hanging on our flags. Western values, I mean, I used to be a very proud Canadian. I used to be very proud I was from Canada. And the last 10 years, I can honestly say now, when I really am not. I'm kind of embarrassed, especially if I was going to go to India, because I kind of feel like I'd have to wear some kind of a Western garment when nobody else is wearing it except one of our prime ministers. You know, I mean, there's so many reasons to not be proud of this country anymore. But I would definitely be very proud to stay in Saskatchewan. I like to ask people this question as well. It's another good question to ask them. If tonight Saskatchewan did leave and became its own country, are you going to pack up your bags and move to some other provinces to say that, hey, I'm a Canadian? I mean, honestly, anybody can do that? I wouldn't. Why?
On census, you're not a Canadian.
Pardon me?
On census, there isn't a spot there to say that you're a Canadian.
Yeah, that's right. You always want your ethnic background. I was put on in grade 10 and I actually called down to the principal's office and I was not taken. But I
got
thought,
in
there's no
trouble
way I
with
was Canadian.
for that in the 90s.
Yeah.
I put down Canadian.
Well, they're still doing that after I left. Interesting. But I mean, the point is that, no, I forgot my point. Oh, I know what it was. So as, like, right now, if you go across this country, there is a lot of provinces that are totally gone. There is no piece of Canada left there whatsoever. Because what is a Canadian? It's those values and it's our cultures. And I ran into a girl that was working in a restaurant. And she just came here and it was her first winter here. And that's the year where we had like that 30 below weather like for a month. And I said, wow. I said, what do you think of that? She says, oh yeah, this place is cool. I said, so what do you think? You're going to move back? She says, no, I love Canada. I said, well, why? She says, well, it's a multicultural country. And that's when it hit me. Wait a minute. Who told you that? Well, that's what they tell us when we come over here. No. We have Canadian culture. It's called ice hockey right now on somebody's pond where the kids are out there skating, chasing the puck. It's the poutine. It's the lumber in BC. We have a lot of cultural things here that our lives are built around. And if you look, I'm not going to go into the definition of culture, but look at what a culture is. We have a culture. And they tell these people that, they come here, they think that they can just do whatever they want. Well, the problem is that we want them to come here and become part of the country, right? I mean, yes, this country is made up of a bunch of cultures, but we have now what we find Canadian culture, in my opinion. So the place where I find that is here, in Saskatchewan and Alberta. It's still there. There's still enough of us that are preserving that. So by having our own nation, that's one thing we can keep. And remember, we won't be Canadian, but it'll still be in our hearts because that's who we are as people. So just because we're not a Canadian anymore, it'll still be there. It'll just be Saskatchewan. Alberta. So immigration is something that we can actually deal with. You know, we can say anybody who's not a permanent resident, you have to go to the other part of Canada because we're no longer that. And we can even do things beyond that. But I mean, it's something that does have to be stopped because they're taking jobs. They're getting, with all the foreign investment worker programs that they have, is making it so our youth can't get any jobs. Our youth can't buy a house like we did. They can't start a family. A lot are scared to start a family because they know that they can't afford it. I actually heard many of the people, like young kids, say that, yeah, we'd love to have a family, but we can't afford it. Isn't that sad? I don't know about you, but my kids are the most precious thing, and my grandkids are as precious. And without them, what's the point of being alive, really? You know, so for like the other people, I mean, it's sad. And you'll notice when you look around here, there's nobody here under the age of 30 or 40, usually. You know, so what does that tell you? And the reason is, according to a young man I'm talking to, a lot of the Generation Z are waiting for the old boomers to die. Why? Because we don't care about them, we just care about our wealth, and we've ruined this country for them. So they're waiting. Well, I can tell you, they don't have 20 years. There ain't gonna be a country left for them. So if you have somebody who's in that age, talk to them. Sit down and listen to them. But more importantly, make them understand that they are the ones that this is gonna affect more than anybody they want to get on board. Because we need them at this meeting. We could actually have schools that worry about education only, math, English, science, you know, not about, you know, going for surgery. We can change our political system. I think this is a really big one. I mean, and again, I'm not making this decision, I don't have nothing to do with it. I guarantee you, I don't ever want to be a politician. I didn't want to do this, but somebody has to start it, and that's why I'm here. And the reality is that with a political system, we can actually include our own recall system. We get rid of the whole Westminster thing where you have the Senate that is appointed. We can have that. We can actually, can you imagine, we can get rid of parties. Because as you know, you vote for me, I'll be voting against that if they ask me that. And as soon as they call it, oh, the party said I have to say yes. I don't want to be kicked out. Like that's the party line, right? Look how it was working, it's not. So just a thought, I was thinking it'd be really cool if we got rid of parties, because could you imagine there'd be 5 people in a debate and you're riding, and they actually have to tell you what they stand for. And then if they don't vote the way that they promised they would, with the majority of people want, we could have a recall system, we can get them the hell out of there. Because we've been wanting, you know, Justin gone for how many years, and how did that go for us to get rid of him? He stepped down and they replaced him with another carousel person. Transparency, you know, that'd be really nice. All those other things that I showed you, all those people who embezzled our money, why are they not in jail? I guarantee you, if any of that gone on with Harper, and I'm not saying I'm a fan of Harper, I'm just saying, if that would have happened with Harper, or let's say Pierre just got elected, and he had that many ethic violations, like with Garfield that Carney hit us, they'd be burning Parliament Hill down right now. They would be just going to town. So we could actually have some accountability. Small government, less regulations. Anybody here that a lot of us here in the city has asked, proposed legislation that during the Rider Games, to have a tailgate party now, you have to apply for a permit. So, I mean, here's the thing. I went down there, and I'll be honest, I was surprised when I walked by and people were doing yours like, wow, man, you guys got balls. I won't be doing that because they're going to be coming and taking my stuff. But apparently that's okay there because it's accepted. It's been part of the culture. It's part of what they allow. So more regulation. Why the more regulation, right? Everything, every time they come on, it's another law, another law, another law. They just keep taking more and more from us. We would maybe be able to get rid of some of those things, right? You need laws, but you don't need all of them. We can do so much more with our resource development. Over the years, the amount of money that we would get out of resources, I mean, we could do so much for this province. We could actually have a fund like Norway where we've got trillions. You could eliminate all taxes. We could get rid of the Senate. We could even elect our judges. Wouldn't that be nice? You know that guy who just let that guy who killed, you know, that small child or raped a small child out of jail and, you know, free bail? Well, maybe we could get rid of judges like that. I'd really like to have that option. We can treat our seniors better. Instead of giving them these a little bit of pension and a little bit of old age security they get now, we'd be able to increase that so it actually matches expenses. I don't know how they live on that. We can treat our veterans better. I mean, after all, they did fight for our freedoms, right? We could have higher pensions. First Nations would be able to gain because they can actually negotiate for what they want. And, you know, it's been, like I wanted to say to her, it's been 120 years that Canada has been a country. How is that related? And your treaties are longer than that. How's that been working out for you? 120 years, like, what's the definition of sanity? You do the same thing over and over, nothing changes, right? So I think that they would have a lot to gain. And I mean, the thing is, too, we live with these people. We know them. We talk to them. Do you think Ottawa cares? Because they know it's a couple-day ride, you can get to their doorstep. We can control the immigration, the affordability. Think of how we can change the affordability if we're not paying carbon taxes and all those other stupid taxes. We could actually maybe build some more factories back here in Saskatchewan because we've got the wheat. Why are we transporting it away across half the world to get it made to buy it back? Family support. I mean, obviously, we'd be able to support the families who maybe, like, you know, when they came up with the welfare system, it was for that farmer who got hurt in the field and could no longer, you know, look after doing the crop, maybe he died. So that was supposed to help the family. You know, that's what welfare system is supposed to be about, right? Not about giving them free money. Free speech on religion. We all know what happened with the young guy who came up from the States that wanted to go and do the concerts in the churches. That's a direct attack on Christianity, and that's also by design. And I don't, like, if somebody's here and they're Muslim, and that's fine. But don't think you're going to get Sharia law, and definitely don't think you're going to tell me I can't practice my religion or say Happy or Merry Christmas. And everybody's equal. I mean, that's something that I get to a lot of arguments with. I mean, I guarantee you, as soon as hate speech bill goes, I'm sure we're going to end up in jail because I said a lot of things against that. I'm the type of person that I don't see color. I don't think you should. I don't think you should see gender. You know, if you just say, like, you'll notice on a poster it says, everyone welcome. Did we say you have to be this gender or that gender or the gender you think you might be? Did we say that you had to be a certain race or color? Did it say anything? No. When you say everyone welcome, that's inclusive. Because as soon as you use the word inclusion with me, you're telling me that you're excluding somebody, because why else do you have to mention it? You know, I remember job affirmative action, working in the jail. There was always all these competitions for the management jobs. And it literally said, only Aboriginal, females, people with physical disabilities, or visible minority need apply. So I'm thinking, nope. No, I'm not transgender. Nope. Oh, wait, yeah, oops. Can't apply. You tell me that's not discrimination? You know what? Couldn't do anything about it. I didn't like it. But yeah, don't tell me that, you know, inclusion means that. Or diversity. When you use the word diversity, all you're telling me is that you're going to be discriminating against somebody because you don't need to say it. Everybody should be equal, and that's the vision that I would have for a new country. So no Saskatchewanians should be left behind. If we treat everybody equal, we'd have safer communities, we have hope, and we can have prosperity for our children. It's freedom for all, and we can achieve the independence. We negotiate that deal with Canada, get the hell out, and the people will decide the future. As I was saying, I'll never be a politician. I guarantee you, soon, if we can get over that finish line, I'm going to finally retire. Because I actually retired early to do this full time, because somebody has to. Since there's the future we lose, in independent Alberta, this of course for Alberta, but applies here. Freedom and privacy, or a decline in Canada has mass surveillance. Medical choice or mandatory vaccinations. Fair taxes or tax slavery. Sovereign economy or a WF and UN-driven policy. What about the future for the youth? Well, in Canada, it'll be the lost generation. The only person coming to save you is the version of yourself that is tired of your current situation. And I wanted to throw these three things in here. This is in 1914. You'll see they're laying in foxholes. And it's cold, it's winter. You see how crowded that is. Could you imagine being there for a year? Every day, that's your life. You're cold, you're hurt, you're starving, and there's bullets flying over your head. That is the price that some Canadians and people from all over the world paid for freedom. I'm not asking you to do that, am I? All I'm asking you is to, when we have a couple things that we need to get signed or whatever, you just simply come out. We're asking a few people to step up and be willing to go and get those signatures if they need to go and get them. I'm not asking you to go in a foxhole. I'm not. I'm asking you something very simple. So, there's the sign out thing on the little QR code. You can sign up, and then we know how to contact you. If you want to volunteer, we would really appreciate any of the help that we can get. You can do that on this form too. If you're not comfortable using the phone, you can put it. We have a piece of paper over there. You can put your name down. I did have sheets, but like I said, I was told there's a whole bunch there. There's nothing left. So my apologies for that. But you can also know that we have the Saskatchewan Prosperity website. If you go there now, you'll see that old logo that's underneath. Looks like a pool elevator logo. There's another site that we're getting taken down. What's happening with that, Dwayne?
It's just in transition while we're moving everything across to that new server.
No, I'm talking about the old Saskatchewan Prosperity site the Buffalo Party was doing 2 years ago.
I'm not sure about that.
You get a hold of her yet? Okay. Yeah, because we know who had that site, whatever, we're gonna get that taken down. Just so you're not confused, the one you're looking for is that logo. So watch our website, because that's gonna all of a sudden pop up one day. There's gonna be a bunch of stuff on it. We're gonna be growing that real fast. So we'll have all the resources. Well, we should have the numbers by then. So you can do all the comparisons, so you can tell people what the realities are. And I'm, that's hopefully the next meeting, if you see me, I'll be able to actually tell you what those all are. The ultimate quantum we have is the unity. So like I said, if we all stood up and we all do it together, majority of us, that's the only way we're going to get anything done. So you've got to be prepared to do that. You've got to talk to your grandchildren and your children and make sure they understand this. This is their lives. We only got one chance in this, one shot. I guarantee you, if we don't get this through, we're done. We're finished. No one's coming to save us. So when I decided to take the role as president, this is the question I asked myself. I realized somebody needs to step up. If it's not me, then who? And I'm going to ask you, if it's not us, then who? Thank you very much for coming. Really appreciate that you all showed up. Makes this worthwhile, because if there have been 5 people here, I still would have been happy, because that's 5 to start with, but we got a good base here. I hope you'll get involved. If any of you are from outside of Prince Albert and you want to do a town hall like this, I don't need to have 100 people show up, but I'll start with any group, because we've got to get this going. We've got to get working. So I'm going to ask you to remember that foxhole, and we're not asking you to do that. We're asking just to help, just once in a while, whatever you can do, because we've got to make a difference. It's up to us. No one's coming. So thank you.